Stop being entitled in relationship. It doesn't serve you, it doesn't serve the other, it doesn't serve the relationship. When you're entitled in relationship, you're projecting. And we often do this when we feel unsafe. When we feel unsafe, when we don't quite know who we are, when we don't trust ourselves, when we don't trust the other, we begin to feel entitled, that we should be experiencing this, that we should be feeling safe, that we should be treated better by our partners. Now, entitlement is on that spectrum, right? Sometimes entitlement isn't obvious. Sometimes when you get frustrated when you don't have your daily routine, sometimes when you're in that, I wake up in the morning at 7 a.m, I need to have my coffee. And if something happens where there's not fresh coffee brewed, or you don't have almond milk or milk or oat milk, whatever it is that you have with your coffee, or honey or whatever it is, and you don't have that and you get really frustrated, that's a form of entitlement. I should be having sex every night if I'm in a relationship. And if something happens where you don't, you feel that you're missing out. You feel that something's not right, that the world's against you, this chip on your shoulder. That's a form of entitlement as well. Privilege is a form of entitlement. Having a particular status, thinking a particular skin color gives you entitlement or greater opportunity. That's a form of entitlement. But let's speak specifically to entitlement in relationship, because what happens is entitlement in relationship distances us from gratitude. We lose our ability to see the value in another and to see the value in relationship when we're fixated on rigid beliefs and rigid ideas around how something needs to be in relationship, how we need to be treated. This comes down to our unconscious agreements with who we wish to be in relationship, number one, but importantly, how others should treat us and how the dynamic of the relationship needs to go. Let me give you an example of a not very obvious form of entitlement, which can also be, again, we're using this form of entitlement synonymously with how something needs to be, how it should unravel itself, right? Now, imagine this. You just get together with your partner and you move in together and it's going really well. You're still in that hormonal flush stage, right? You're still in that honeymoon period. And what happens is you have dinner. And in having dinner, you have this unconscious agreement in your mind, in your body, in your being, that before you sit down to eat, it's really, really important that the dishes are done, that everything is clean, that everything is in order. Everything has to be in order before you can sit down and eat. Now, you're not sure why that happens, but it frustrates you that your partner, that your beloved, actually isn't like that. He or she just don't care if the dishes are done and the kitchen and everything is in order before you eat. They just want to eat. They're hungry. Now, at the beginning, that's okay, but after a while, this really begins to annoy you. And you think to yourself, this needs to be like this. It should be like this. It should be that we clean everything up. And all of a sudden, you're arguing about, why aren't we cleaning up dishes before we eat? Why isn't everything in order before we eat? Why can't we just do that? And your partner, for some reason, we'll get to that in a moment, is reluctant or resistant to that, or it's just not in their habitual practice. But when you turn it inwards just for a moment and ask yourself, why am I so upset about this? What is really happening here? What could be happening is somewhere in your life, probably during your developmental years as a child, you made an association with, when life is in greater order, there is less conflict, there is less violence, there is less abuse. I'll give you an example from my life. At home, when the house was in order, my father would be just a little bit less inclined to be so angry and so upset. He would be a little bit inclined to be so frustrated and short-tempered. And so I knew as a child, if I cleaned everything up, if I helped mum clean everything up and made sure that everything was in order before we ate or after we ate, whenever it was, right, just all the time essentially, that the chances are Dad wouldn't be so aggressive, he wouldn't get so upset, and we wouldn't get hit and we wouldn't get screamed at. And so I developed this idea that that's how it needs to be. Everything needs to be in order. Once I started to understand that, I was able to release this unconscious projected expectation and this sense of entitlement that it has to be my way. Because that's another form of entitlement. It has to be our way. And I started to look at the situation and say, well, firstly, I don't need to project my father, my parents, or my upbringing into this situation, into this relationship and this dynamic. And secondly, my partner is not my father or my mother or the dynamic that I experienced when I was younger. And so I was able to release that slowly, go through process of feeling and then forgiveness and acceptance and move beyond this place of I don't need to feel massively entitled in the sense that it doesn't need to be my way, because my way was coming from a wounded place, from a place of fear. Now, is it going to be like that for everyone? Not necessarily. However, we will have more than likely stories, unconscious stories, belief systems, and models of reality of how something should be that influence and impact the way we speak to others in the present, the way we think about how we need to be treated. So it begins with checking our unconscious agreements. That can be so empowering and liberating at the same time. Now, that's not to say that you're not going to go through some challenge and pain searching for them. I definitely suggest seeking some professional support, surrounding yourself with people that you love, creating spaciousness in your life, have fun, have play, be creative, do things that you enjoy doing so that you can have a spaciousness where you're not consistently and fully under stress, tension, and anxiousness. That helps you think clearer. But check those unconscious agreements. Check that sense of entitlement of it has to be my way. Where is that really coming from? Why does that exist within you? It has to be your way. Is it coming from a place of pain, fear, and wounding? Or is it legitimately coming from a sense of clarity, a place of clarity? And really the answer to that is if it's coming from a place of clarity, your emotional reaction to it isn't a reaction, it's a response. And your emotional attachment to it, the way you relate to it is far calmer, far more peaceful, less stressed. It's very, very different. There isn't a defensiveness that comes with that. And so when we're looking at entitlement, entitlement also carries defensiveness. It can carry this undertone of aggression even. Now the aggression can be a passive aggression or it can be a very overt aggression. But entitlement in relationship destroys relationship because it's so unconscious. So go into your stuff. When we go into our stuff and we start to make conscious, aware, deliberate choices from a place of now by clearing up the past and simultaneously choosing to explore our potential, aka the unknown and the mystery, we start to expand our potential for being the most optimized human possible. That, my friends, is a deeper sense of empowerment. And you bring that to relationship, you bring that sense of awareness to conscious union, to sacred union. That's power. Power in the definitive sense of sharing, and the relationship itself grows because the relationship is an entity. It carries a life of its own. It brings, whether there's 2, 3, 4, 5 people, it doesn't matter in the relationship, the intimacy takes the intimate input from every single person, brings it into the relationship, and the relationship thrives, is alive, and has a mind and a heart of its own. It has a soul of its own. That is power. Being aware of our stuff and our unconscious agreements and what we bring into relationship. Don't bring that sense of entitlement. It will only distance you and isolate you. People will put their walls up. They will feel defensive. They will feel threatened. When someone feels threatened, they can't sit there. They will struggle. It will be more difficult to sit there with you and reason with you and feel you and hear you and really see you. And you won't be able to see them. And all of a sudden, all you're seeing is each other's anger and aggression and wounding. And we all wish to be seen in truth. It's your call.